Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here, and we are back with another game report, a brand new game report, in fact, for a brand new game, Rusty Dagger by Table Salt Games. I was clued into the existence of Rusty Dagger by two channels, Ithaca's Bane and World of War Gaming. Check them out if you want to, thanks for the heads up. Rusty Dagger is a solo RPG game, kind of like those old Choose Your Adventure books. You can find it on DriveThru RPG for the princely sum of $2. That is exactly the kind of price tag that I'm looking for. For that amount, you get 3 one-page rule sheets which you fold up into little booklets. The first describes the core rules, how to play the game, the second goes over how to make your character, and the third is the first adventure, Spire of the Golem, which we're going to run through today. The big benefit of this game, besides its price and the fact that it gets me one step closer to my goal of 3 new games played each year, is that I don't have to paint any new models for it. I think I've got pretty much everything I need to run through the first adventure. So when it came time to make my character, I was very motivated not to go and do anything brand new. I wanted to go through my old miniatures and pick out someone I haven't used in a while, and so I'm going to go with this guy, Raskin the Reptile. You may remember him from a while back when I used him as the head of a mercenary company that tried to steal some chimera eggs, and it didn't go great. So his mercenary company got eaten, and now he's on his own trying to adventure and build up the funds to rejoin the ranks of the glorious dogs of war. In Rusty Dagger, when you make your character, you get to choose from 4 basic character classes. I, of course, am going with mercenary. Not only does it, of course, fit the background of the model that I have, but it seems like a pretty good choice. You use a lot of swordsmanship and brawn in these games, and the mercenary skills key off of these abilities. If I wanted to go with something like the Necromancer or the Grafter, I'd have to invest my points that I start off with in some other skills, and I didn't want to do that. Because I had the benefit of watching other channels play through this adventure, I had an idea of what I wanted to do when it came time to set up the stats of my hero. There are 5 stats: health, combat, knowledge, judgment, and personality. You have 5 numbers that you can assign to them: an 11, a 9, 2 7s, and a 4. And while there's a good argument to be had about putting your highest stat into health to keep your guy alive, I think I'm going to go with a more active defense and put my highest stat into combat. From there, you divide the stat up into 2 skills, archery and swordsmanship, and I'm going to go all or nothing. It kind of seemed like archery was a little underwhelming in the games that I watched, so I'm going to put all 11 of my combat into swordsmanship. I'm going to make him as good as possible at this one particular thing. That leaves a 0 for archery. It's not really the biggest deal. When you go to make a skill test, you roll 2d6 and add the modifier from your stat. That 11 swordsmanship gives me a +3, which is pretty nice, and the 0 in archery gives me a -2, which is not. But it's not like either of those 2 numbers mean that you're automatically going to fail or automatically going to succeed. From there, I put the 9 in health, which gives me 9 starting wounds, and I divided that into 3 in agility, which gives me a -1, and 6 into brawn, which gives me a +1. Raskin is not light on his feet, but he can take a punch. And again, this goes with my strategy of maxing out the stats that I think are going to get used the most. Knowledge is probably the stat I'm going to be using the least. I'm going to solve things with my fist, not with my brain. So that gets the 4, and I divide that into a 0 in arcane and 4 in survival. The 2 7s go into judgment and personality. I divide judgment with a 5 for luck and a 2 for wisdom, and personality gets split into a 5 for candor and a 2 for guile. Each hero starts with 15 wealth to use to equip themselves at the start of the game, but there's not really a whole lot to buy. I've already said that I'm not really interested in getting myself a bow, although for 10 wealth it's probably the most cost-effective thing that you can get. But you'd have to keep buying arrows for it, and I'd also have to go and paint or convert a model with a bow, and I didn't want to. You can spend all of your money on a wolf companion, which is awesome, but in this game, having an extra companion, like a wolf, means that you don't really get extra actions in a round. You just have an extra model that you can give actions to, and I kind of think like it'd be better to have my hero take more actions himself because he has better stats. So in the end, I just bought myself 2 small healing potions and a Maiden's Ring. The healing potions will heal 2 wounds from Raskin, and the Maiden's Ring is actually pretty nice. It gives you +1 candor. It's the only item you can get that affects your stats, so that bumps his candor up to 6. And that's it. Hero creation only takes up one tiny 1-page folded booklet, so it's not real involved. Raskin the Reptile is ready to set forth and earn fame and glory, and the first stop on his way is the Spire of the Golem. While hanging out at the tavern, the Rusty Dagger, I have heard rumors that a mysterious tower has suddenly appeared in the countryside. All Brigadoon style, I guess. I go to check it out, and sure enough, I find a big spooky tower. I also find this guy hanging around outside. His name is Allendale, and he tells me very straightforwardly that he's a thief looking to loot the tower. Seeing as how my mercenary company has been a little depleted recently, I think it's a good idea for us to join forces. This is what's called a narrative challenge in Rusty Dagger. It's usually just a little section of text followed by a skill check. In this case, I'm going to roll 2d6 and add my candor modifier in order to talk Allendale the thief into joining me. The difficulty is only 5, and thanks to my Maiden's Ring, I do have a +1 to my skill check. I roll the 2d6, add the +1, and sure enough, I succeed. I gain advantage on the next combat challenge. I'll talk about that in a bit. And I now got a thief buddy. And this thief buddy immediately tells me that there is a door that appears in the tower when the moon reaches its highest point. So we hang out for a little bit, the door opens and we step inside. We are assailed by the smell of rot as we wander around the corridors, and we find out that it's not just rotten timbers or supplies, but in fact it's a bunch of zombies that shuffle towards us. Now we have our first combat challenge. Combat challenges in Rusty Dagger take place on a 6x10 grid, and that's the only thing that I made and painted for this adventure. Everything else I had already. It's just a sheet of hardboard that I cut down to size and beveled the edges, and then attached a little bit of foam board with this flagstone pattern carved onto the top of it. Painted up, didn't take too long. We're ready to fight. In this challenge, we get 3 zombies to fight. Their initial placement is on the extreme right-hand edge. I roll a d6 to find out where each one goes. I get one on 2, 4, and 5. My guys are placed in a similar way. Raskin the Reptile goes in spot 1 behind that crate, and Allendale the Thief goes on spot 5. There's also battlefield terrain. Battlefield terrain is placed by rolling a d6 and a d10 to find the coordinates of where it goes. We have 3 small low pieces and 1 large low piece. So 2 crates, a barrel, and that longer table. While they can be a minor impediment to movement, the main thing about these terrain pieces is that they provide cover for shooting attacks. I'm not going to be using any shooting attacks, so it's not really going to matter. Stat-wise, my buddy Allendale is not great. He's got a swordsmanship of 5, meaning that when he goes to stab someone with his daggers, he's rolling 2d6 without any modifiers. His brawn is even worse. It's a 3, meaning that when the zombies attack him, in order to defend, he's rolling 2d6 minus 1. The only special item he has is bottled smoke, which can make a big cloud blocking line of sight. I don't see that being real useful right here. He does have a special ability called Sleight of Hand, meaning that as an action, he can take one of my side's tokens and put it back in the bag, and I'll get to that in a moment. The zombies are not the most impressive enemies. They only have 2 health. All my attacks only cause 1 point of damage, so 2 hits and they're dead. And their attack and defense is just d6 plus 3. So they're as good or better than Allendale, but substantially worse than Raskin. They're also slow. They only move 2 spaces as opposed to my guys who move 4. And that's about it. Each round in Rusty Dagger, each side gets 3 tokens in a bag. You draw a token. If it's the good guy's token, then they choose a character to make 2 actions. And if it's the bad guy token, then a bad guy will take 2 actions. There are ways to get advantage and disadvantage with this token method. For example, in the first round of this combat, if my guys are outnumbered, which we are, then the bad guys get advantage, which means that they gain an extra token in the bag, just for this first round. Likewise, I got advantage on this first combat round when I convinced Allendale to join the party. So we're each going to have 4 tokens on this first round, and after that we're each going to have 3. There is a matrix going over how to run the bad guys. It's real simple. But the good guys have a lot of freedom. Although it seems weird, there's nothing stopping me from using all 3 of my activations on, say, Raskin and none on Allendale. I'm not sure how this is going to work in practice, but I'm willing to find out. We draw a token from the bag and we get a bad guy token, meaning one of the zombies is going to activate. We're going to pick the zombie that is closest to one of our guys. That's just how the matrix works. The closest zombie is the one in the lowest position across from Allendale. He moves 2 spaces towards Allendale. He has to move around that crate, and he can't move diagonally in this game. The next token drawn is for one of the good guys, and so I'm going to activate Raskin the Reptile. He's going to move out from behind that crate and towards the zombie at the top of the board. Since the zombies have advantage this round, they've got 4 tokens in the bag. They're going to get 4 activations, so one of the zombies is going to get to move an extra time. I'm going to make Raskin the closest guy to that zombie on the top. I'm going to lead him a little bit further forward. The hope is that I'm going to be able to take these zombies on one at a time. Another good guy token, and I activate Allendale this time. He's going to move in support of Raskin and just try not to be the closest threat. Zombie token, and that zombie on the top moves towards Raskin. Another zombie token, and the last zombie tries to move out from behind his friend that cut him off. Hero token, Allendale's going to move next to Raskin. Going to try and keep that second wave of zombies off my back. I then draw the last hero token. Kinda too bad. I wouldn't have minded if that zombie had gone first, moved a little bit closer towards Raskin. Raskin could have jumped forward and attacked him before the end of the round. But oh well, I waste that last activation, don't bother doing anything. Then we draw the last zombie token, and that front zombie just moves straight towards Raskin. Not really that bad, he's been separated from his friends. Hopefully we'll get to go first next round and ambush him before he can cause any damage. So round 1 is over, both sides lose their advantage, 3 tokens go back in the bag. We draw a token and hey, alright, we get a hero token. That means I'm going to activate Raskin the Reptile. He gets 2 actions. First action, he's just going to move 1 square directly in front of that zombie, and then he's going to attack. You can do each particular action a maximum of once, so you can't double move, you can't double attack, all that kind of stuff. So swinging with his hammer, we roll his 2d6 and add his swordsmanship. I roll pretty bad. I only managed to get 4 on the dice, giving me a total of 7. Thankfully, the zombie only rolls 3 with his modifier of 3. That gives it a 6. I barely get past its defense and hand it 1 wound. We then draw a zombie token, so according to the Matrix, the zombie that is closest is going to attack us, so that's the one in combat with Raskin. He stretches out a zombie claw, but only rolls a 1, giving him a total 4, and I roll 7 with my brawn modifier of +1, that gives me an 8. 4 versus 8, that means I defend the attack, no damage caused. We draw a zombie token again, so the next closest zombie is going to advance, and then we draw the last zombie token, so the final zombie moves into position there. That's perfect. The rest of the tokens in the bag are for the heroes. I think we're in a position to use Allendale's Sleight of Hand ability. So next hero token, I'm going to activate Allen. He's going to flank left around that zombie. He then attacks but can't get through the zombie's defense. Remember, Allendale just isn't as good of a fighter as Raskin is. We then draw our last token from the bag. I'm going to activate Allendale again. He's going to attack the zombie again. This time he gets a 7 versus the zombie 6, causes 1 wound, kills the zombie. Nice job. And then he's going to use his second action to use Sleight of Hand, meaning I place one of my tokens back in the bag. It's the only token in there, so I know I'm going to draw it. We're going to activate Raskin this time. Raskin moves down to the next zombie in that line and goes and attacks. Rolls a 3 with his modifier of 3. That gives him a 6. The zombie rolls a total of 7. No damage caused. I'm a little tired of these dice. These dice have not been rolling really well for me. I go and retire those, get a new set of 2d6s. New round and 3 tokens for each side go back in the bag. Allendale's Sleight of Hand ability can only be used once per combat challenge, so that's what it's going to be for the rest of this challenge. Draw the first token and we get the good guys. Fantastic. Raskin is going to activate first. Goes and attacks, gets himself a 14. Zombie can't defend against that, takes a wound. The next token is the bad guys. The zombie attacks back, gets a 9 versus my 12. Oh, these are much better dice. No damage caused by the zombie. Next token is the good guys again. Raskin attacks, gets a 9 versus a 7. Dead zombie. Yeah, I like how this is rolling much better. The next token is a zombie token. Since you can't attack diagonally, the zombie has to move up, strikes at Raskin, but rolls a 1. Raskin has no trouble defending that with an 8. Zombie token again, so the zombie strikes again. Again, killing off zombies doesn't actually reduce the number of activations that the bad guys have. It just makes the remaining bad guys angrier. Anyway, zombie scores a 6. Raskin gets a 9. So far this is turning out okay. Last good guy activation, and I activate Raskin the Reptile again. Allendale can sit this round out. He gets a respectable 9. Zombie can only manage an 8. Zombie takes another wound. New round tokens back in the bag. Draw the hero token again. Let's see if we can wrap this up, and absolutely we can. Raskin rolls a 9 on the dice with his swordsmanship modifier. That becomes a 12. Zombie can roll a maximum of a 9, can't defend against that, loses his last wound and dies. My team is victorious. So far so good. At the end of the combat, we are called upon to make a search action, which is 2d6 plus our luck skill. Raskin has no luck modifier, so it's just 2d6. He gets an 11. He cannot be stopped. That means he manages to find another small healing potion and a vial of acid in the room. A vial of acid can be used as a weapon. It can be thrown at an enemy up to 4 squares away. Raskin is a pretty terrible shot, but the Vial of Acid does cause 2 wounds if it hits, which is nice, so we'll just hold on to that. He did all the fighting, he gets the loot. And then we move on. Raskin the Reptile and Allendale the Thief are stumbling down the corridors when one of us triggers a dart trap. Each of my characters needs to make an agility test against a difficulty number of 6. Allendale has an agility of 4, which means that he doesn't have any modifiers to the roll and manages to pass. But Raskin is not so nimble. He has an agility of 3, meaning he has a -1 to the roll, and he fails. Dart hits him in the ankle and he takes 1 point of damage, down to 8 health remaining. But we don't have time to worry about that, we're straight on to another combat challenge. From out of the shadows come 2 zombie wolves and a rat swarm. The zombie wolves are much faster than the regular zombies. They move 6 as opposed to 2. They still only have 2 health, but this time they have 2d6 for their action dice instead of d6 plus 3. Slightly better on average, but can certainly spike higher and lower. The rat swarm moves 4 squares, it only has 1 health. Its action dice is just a d6 plus 1. It's pretty weak, but it does have infectious poison. If I take a wound from the giant rat, that means that my guys can only use the crawl movement rate from then on until they get healed. So they'll only be able to go 2 squares per action. Our deployment ends up like this. No one has advantage, so 3 tokens for each side go in the bag, and we begin. We get a hero token for the first draw. I'm going to activate Raskin. I'm going to do kind of the same thing I did last time. Draw out that wolf at the top and see if I can't deal with them first. And if I have the opportunity, I really want to get the jump on that giant rat. I want to kill it before it has a chance to try and attack me. I don't want to get poisoned or diseased or whatever it does. So Raskin just moves up and forward a little bit to draw out that northern wolf. Another hero token means that I gotta activate someone. I'm gonna activate Allendale. He's okay where he is right now. I'm just gonna have him chill. Bad guy activation, closest model is one of those zombie wolves, so it bounds across the table as you see there. Another bad guy token, and the giant rat is the next closest, so it falls in behind the giant wolf. And 3 times in a row we get another bad guy token. The final wolf advances. Final token is a good guy token. I'm gonna activate Raskin. He's going to change tact and go to the south, attack that lower wolf. Just put a little distance between me and that giant rat. Don't want to get bit. I don't roll great. I roll a 5 on the dice, plus 3 for my swordsmanship, end up with an 8. The wolf rolls a very average 7, which means it takes a wound. Good start. Back to the start of the turn, tokens go back in the bag. We draw a token, we get the bad guys, which means that wolf in combat with Raskin gets to attack. Doesn't roll particularly well. These dice aren't working great for the bad guys either, but I don't feel the need to replace them. Only ends up with a 4 on 2d6, but I roll even worse. I get 3 on a 2d6, but with my plus 1 for brawn, I do manage to equal the score, meaning I don't take any damage. Cool. Second token is also a bad guy token. The next wolf in the line moves and attacks Raskin in the flank. Does much better this time, rolls a 9, but Raskin is a champ, rolls an 11, gives him a total of 12, defends again, nice job. Good guy token, and I'm going to activate Allendale. Allendale moves in and attacks the new wolf that's attacking me on the flank. I don't want to try and kill off the original wolf because then the rat would be able to move into the empty space and attack me, so we're going to divide our damage. Anyway, Allendale manages to drop his dagger on his foot. He rolls a 3 versus the wolf's defense of 10. Not stellar. We get another good guy token, and this time I'm going to activate Raskin. We're going to show you how it's done, Allendale. Raskin manages to roll a 10 to the wolf's 5, puts a wound on the wolf. Last bad guy token, the giant rat goes and activates. Can't quite get into orthogonal-based contact with my guys, so just moves to the south like that. That means we are left with the 1 remaining token in the bag. We draw it, it's a good guy die. Sounds like a good opportunity to use sleight of hand. I like using sleight of hand when I know I'm not going to get interrupted by bad guy attacks. Anyway, in order to use sleight of hand, I have to activate Allendale, so he's going to go and take another stab at that wolf. Does a lot better, gets a 9, but the wolf also gets a 9, resists the damage. Sleight of hand puts our token back in the bag. We immediately draw it. I'm going to activate Raskin this time. I'd like to move down and attack that rat, but if I move away from that wolf at the top, it's going to get an attack on me. I don't really want to give it that opportunity, so I'm just going to attack the wolf in the north. Another mighty stroke from the hammer causes a wound to the wolf. It dies. So tokens back in the bag, we draw it, and again the heroes get to go first. Perfect. I mean, even if the bad guys had gone first, it would have been the wolf that attacked, but even so, I'm pleased by this. Raskin is going to move 1 square to the south. I haven't moved out of adjacency with the other zombie wolf, so it doesn't get an attack of opportunity against me. I'm going to strike against that rat. I'm pretty confident about this, especially once I see my die score. I get an 8, meaning I scored an 11. The rat only manages to get a 3. Rat dies. Perfect. So all that's left for the bad guys is an injured wolf. It will get all the activations for this round starting now. We draw a bad guy token. The wolf moves around Raskin's flank, attacks him, only manages a 4 versus my 6. And with the draw of the good guy token, we're back to Raskin. 14 versus 10. Good scores all around, but that swordsmanship of +3 is a bit of a thing. 1 more wound on the wolf. Can't take any more than that. It keels over and dies. Following that up, we loot the room and get 5 wealth. Not too bad. So finally we travel to the last room in the dungeon. We go through a set of double doors and we find a giant stone golem. He's kind of a chatty golem, taunts me a little bit, saying we're going to end up like zombies. We're not so interested in that. We're more interested in the giant glowing jewel at the far end of the room. But it looks like to get to that we have to go through the golem and his 2 zombie friends. There are these 4 pillars in the room. They're just like the low obstacles, except you can't jump across them like you can the small obstacles. The golem is a pretty beefy guy. He can move 4 squares, he's got a health of 6, and his ability dice are d8 plus d6, so substantially better than the zombies and the zombie wolf. It also has the armored skill, which means that if my attack dice ends up with a 6 or less, I can't hurt him. Other than that, it's another round of combat. Tokens go in the bag. We draw a hero token to start, and I'm going to keep doing the same thing I have been doing. I'm going to try and draw this golem out away from his zombie companions. Concentrate fire on him. Unfortunately, he's up into the north, which is a little problematic because these passageways with these pillars are a little narrow, but what can you do? Activate Raskin, move him all the way to the top. Bad guy token and the golem activates, comes chasing after me. I get a hero token next. Yeah, I could send Raskin into the golem, start swinging that hammer, but I really don't want to get flanked and surrounded by those zombies. I think I have a little bit of a plan. I'm going to activate Allendale, and he's going to move up so he's closer to the zombies, but not closer to the golem. So my hope is that the zombies will try and chase Allendale around, while Raskin can focus on bashing the golem's head in. I draw another hero token, and so I just kind of burn it. I like where I am, I don't need to move further. The next 2 activations are the zombies, and they go shambling after Allendale as in the plan. New round and the bad guys go first, which is great actually. The golem is the closest to my guys, and so he's going to activate, come charging into Raskin. His flank is protected by that pillar, which isn't great. I think it would have been okay if Allendale would have been able to move in there and chip in with his daggers, but I think it'll be okay. The golem gets to attack though, and its first roll is an 8. That's pretty good, but Raskin is up for the challenge. Rolls 9 on his 2d6, plus 1 for his brawn. 10 defends against the attack. Another bad guy token and the closest zombie shuffles after Allendale. And then 3rd bad guy token in a row, the next zombie goes as well. So this is kind of cool. I'm going to have 3 uninterrupted actions. And might as well make that 4. I'm going to activate Allendale. I'm going to move him over just 1 square so the next round the zombies can't move in and attack me, but they're still going to be chasing after Allendale. And then for my second action, going to use Sleight of Hand. Put that token right back in the bag. That means I'm going to have 3 uninterrupted activations at the end of this round. Going to put them all on Raskin the Reptile. Come on, Raskin, bonk bonk on head. First one, I'm going to attack the golem. I get an 11 versus his 4. Nicely done. Way to start us off. Puts a wound on the golem. Second attack, another 11. Rolling hot. Golem warms up a little bit. Gets an 8, but he still takes another wound. Third and final action, I managed to get a 7. It would beat the armored skill that the golem has, but he goes and defends with a 12. So 2 wounds on the golem, used up my sleight of hand, but I'm feeling pretty good. New round and bad guys go first. Golem is the closest and swings on Raskin, gets a 9, which I managed to defend also with a 9. Raskin is one feisty little devil. Hero token and activate Raskin again, but this time I get snake eyes. Shouldn't have been overconfident. Even with my +3 swordsmanship skill, that would only bring me up to a 5. Wouldn't get through the armored ability of the golem. Bad guy token, and so a zombie advances on Allendale. Stick and move, Allendale. Keep dodging. Hero token again. Again, go with Raskin. Again, another poor roll. Roll of 3 brings me up to a 6. Still not enough. Third and final bad guy activation. The last zombie advances. Final hero token is drawn. I could attack again with Raskin. I could use Allendale and get him away from those zombies. Nah, you know what? He's going to get caught by these zombies eventually. I'm going to go on offense. Allendale springs forward to the zombie's right flank and attacks. Not only that, he was spending all this time getting good and psyched up. Rolls boxcars against this zombie, 12. No chance of the zombie protecting himself. Zombie takes a wound. New round and the bad guys get the initiative. The Golem is going to attack Raskin. Rolls a 14, maxes out his dice. No defense against that number. Raskin takes his second wound. Back to the good guys activating Raskin. I really don't want Allendale to finish off this zombie because I don't want the Golem to get more actions in a round. Anyway, Raskin manages to get a 9 versus the Golem's 8, chips another chunk of stonework off this monster. Back to the bad guys and the zombie turns around and punches Allendale, 6 to a 4. Back to the good guys and Raskin continues to do work, scores a 12 versus the Golem's 10, one more wound for the Golem. Final zombie activates, can't quite get around his friend in time to attack this round, so just shuffles forward. And then one more activation for Raskin the Reptile. Another big hit, 13 to 3. Golem takes another wound, only has 1 health remaining. So now the big question is, can Raskin finish off this Golem before Allendale is surrounded and eaten by the zombies? Tokens back in the bag, draw it, we get another bad guy. There is life in this Golem still. Punches Raskin 8 to 7. Raskin takes another wound. Well, he doesn't like that at all. Back to the heroes, Raskin activates, gets a mighty 12. The Golem puts up a stern defense, rolls an 11, but it's not enough. Raskin absolutely knocks his block off, and the Golem is defeated. But there's no time to celebrate our victory. Raskin has to move over to the right to try and protect Allendale from these zombies. But maybe I needn't have worried. Draw another hero token, I'm going to activate Allendale. Allendale manages to stab the zombie, gets a 9 to the zombie's 4, last wound taken from the zombie, kills it off. Well, we are looking in real good shape. Or maybe I shouldn't have spoken so soon. The zombie is the next to activate. Wheels around and attacks Raskin. I was feeling real confident with Raskin's +1 brawn, but the zombie gets a 7 to my 5, bites a wound onto Raskin. Immediately follows up that attack with another one. This time it only manages to roll a 2. I easily defend it with a 9. Last hero token comes out. Raskin's going to try and brain this zombie, but he rolls snake eyes. Not so bad really, that does still bring us up to a 5, but the zombie manages to defend it with a roll of 5 of his own. Initiative bag is reset. Zombie gets the first activation, goes and attacks Raskin, gets a pretty impressive score of 9, maxing out the d6. But not to be outdone, Raskin goes and rolls a 10 for a total of 11. That bronze armor of his is stronger than I thought. Good guy activation, we're going to start off with Raskin. He's going to roll a mighty 12. Zombie can't defend against that, takes a wound. But what the zombie lacks in defense, it more than makes up in offense, gets the next activation, rolls a 9 again to Raskin's defense of 7. Raskin done get bit again. But that only makes him mad. Heroes get the next activation. Raskin brings down the hammer on this adventure, scoring an 11 to the zombie's 4. All the enemies are dead. We spike the zombie's skull in the end zone. Surely nothing can go wrong from this point. So while Allendale quickly goes over to grab the jewel, Raskin goes over to the fallen Golem to check it out. I have to make an arcane check, and of course I put 0 in arcane, meaning I have a -2 to this roll. The number I have to make is 7, which means I've got to roll pretty well in order to do that. Unfortunately, I roll well, but not quite well enough. Score myself an 8, goes down to a 6. So close. Because Raskin is a big dummy, he doesn't realize that there's some life in the Golem yet. If I had scored a little bit better, I would have been able to warn Allendale about what's coming next. The Golem springs up and sprints over to Allendale, intent on getting that gem back. Allendale has to make an agility roll with a difficulty of 8, which is kinda high. If I had passed the arcane roll, Allendale would have gotten a +1 to this. As it is, his agility gives him no modifiers whatsoever. Here's the thing about this adventure though, this roll is kinda for all the marbles. If I pass the roll, Allendale becomes a permanent companion. I get 10 wealth plus an additional item, and I gain a skill point to advance one of my stats. If I fail, the jewel is crushed, Allendale is crushed, I get no companion, no money, don't get the bonus skill point. I have to return to the Rusty Dagger dejected, bruised, and empty-handed. I'm gonna feel really bad if Allendale fails this roll by 1, because then I'll think to myself, if I just put a couple of points into arcane, I would have gotten that +1 and he would have saved himself. So the most important die roll of the game comes down And we don't even come close to passing. We roll a 4. Wouldn't have mattered if I'd given him all the warnings in the world. This golem would have absolutely stomped on Allendale's head any way you slice it. So yeah, curse smash at the moment of our triumph. Allendale's head is crushed like a watermelon. The impact shatters the golem as well as the entire tower. I have to hot-foot it out of there as the whole thing comes down around my ears. Not the best result, but kinda on brand for Captain Raskin. This is why everyone always thinks that he had died. I do get 1 skill point for completing the adventure. I put that in health, and that allows me to raise my agility so that I no longer have a -1. I simply have no modifier. I was really hoping to keep Allendale around, though. His sleight of hand ability is cool, and I really like the model. The old Mordheim Johann the Knife guy. But it's okay. I actually really enjoyed my first game of Rusty Dagger. It played really fast. It was pretty simple. I was a little worried about the activation system being kind of unnatural, kind of weird. But honestly, I found a lot of reasons to activate my companions, even in the middle of combat. There are 3 more adventures that I can download through DriveThru RPG, and the good news is those are all free. I only spent $2 on this game, and I get 3 more adventures for absolutely no more money. I think this is a great deal. This is the first time I've actually downloaded something from DriveThru RPG, and I think it turned out great. Not only is it kind of a fast, fun system that's pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it, but it uses really generic models. Zombies, wolves, rats, golems. I mean, maybe I was a little lucky that I had these things largely because I was painting up stuff for Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, but they're pretty standard and they don't describe exactly what you should have as far as the obstacles go at all, so that's pretty easy to get a hold of. The only thing I had to do was, of course, the battle grid. They give you one that you can print out. I made my own, but now I have it for the rest of the adventures. I don't need to make another one. So I'm happy about how accessible it is as far as the models go. This is kind of in contrast to Rangers of Shadowdeep, which I know a lot of people like, but I found kind of a chore. I found the system a little difficult to get going with. It's a more complicated system. It's more in-depth, I know, but this was kind of more the dumb, fun stuff from the Choose Your Own Adventure books that I grew up with. Plus, I think, as I said before, the requirements for the models and the terrain were much easier to get a hold of, much less specific. Anyway, I want to keep going with this. The next adventure is called Den of Rats. I'm looking forward to doing that. I do have to paint 1 model for that one, which isn't too bad. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, observations, or concerns. I'll see you on the next one.